Hi there, thanks for joining me here today. Thanks for watching. So my plan here is to talk about design for value. A couple months ago, I was invited by Product School to speak at their conference in LA, Product Conference. Then I was thinking like, what could I be building and talking about there? Then I thought, let's talk about design for value, something really, really important. I go to customers all the time. I see all the efforts from the XD team, from the Adobe XD team on generating value. And if I could mix all that, everything that I'm seeing from successful product managers, really focused on value, and mix all that with my experience in like 20 years of working with agencies and big corporations, and then mix all that knowledge, things that I wish I knew way, way back. I think my journey as a product manager, when I joined, for example, the product management team for Adobe XD back in 2015, if I knew all those things, that would be a lot easier. So let's talk about design for value. And when I mention design, this is not just pushing pixels. This is design in the sense of creating things, creating a service, creating an experience, creating a product. So who am I, right? My name is Damian Borba. I work with technology, business, training. I worked for agencies. I worked for companies such as BlackBerry during the good days, PayPal, Braintree, and more recently Adobe. I was always like spending a lot of energy and focus on understanding problems, understanding needs. I specialize in design thinking. All right, so let's get started. And because I mentioned this was a talk that I prepared for Product Conference, during the conference I mentioned that people could use the hashtag Adobe XD and ProductCon on Twitter, Instagram, all that for us to follow. One thing that's very special about the XD team, the Adobe XD team, is that anytime you use the hashtag Adobe XD, chances are someone will respond to you very, very quickly, which is really, really amazing. Not only people responsible for customers, but like product people, engineers, designers, which is really impressive. Let's start with the definition of value. What is value, right? So if you go to the dictionary, value is the regard that something is held to deserve, the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. So this is value, but for me and for a lot of people on the XD team at Adobe in general, and a lot of great leaders that I know from other companies, value is really this thing gains on pains, right? So people, when they do a job, when they have that job to be done, when they have a challenge, they normally have a friction, an opportunity to make that thing better. At Adobe, we really focus on deeply understanding the problem, the pain, so we can really build something to solve that. So it's not about the features, it's really about the solving the pain. So value for us is really gains on pains. And another thing that's really important nowadays is that I see a lot of people focused on UX and all that, so really thinking about who's gonna use this, so they build personas and what they're gonna use, so they build like prototypes, super valuable. But a lot of people are forgetting the context. Like the context also involves where they are. So in order to generate value, make sure you cover the who, like the user, maybe it's via a persona or something like that. What, so the experience you're building, but make sure you put a where in context as well. So context is who, what, and where. That's really important. Every time someone comes to us and shares like a very positive feedback, that's good, but I think our brains are kind of trained right now to, as soon as we start hearing like positive feedback, to find opportunities to ask for constructive feedback. So good is awesome, but we're always trying to get to opportunities to improve, and that's only possible via constructive feedback. And I want to use 3 very simple examples to show you what we did in XD to generate value. So the first one here, the first example is around guides and rulers. So a lot of people using Photoshop and Illustrator, they have this mental model where they are used to go to the rulers and then drag a guide to the canvas to do a design, to do the website or the app design that they do there. So that's an existing mental model. So a lot of people wanted the same behavior in XD, and then we have this website called User Voice where we ask people to file not only bugs but also feature requests. So that's a very good place for us to find information on what's important to people, and we have tons of conversations there. And Guides and Rulers had, if I'm not mistaken, almost 3,000 votes on User Voice. So a lot of people wanted that. So what we did in XD is a lot of research, a lot of validation, a lot of prototypes. So we use XD to create prototypes of every major feature. All the apps now at Adobe are designed in XD. So here the solution that we came up with, we didn't add rulers because technically what people wanted is just a way of adding guides to the artboard. So now if you go to the edge of the artboard in XD, you can see an opportunity to drag a guide, and then you can even copy the guides that you drag. When you move them, you see the distance. You could copy and paste into other artboards. So we removed that need to have a ruler because the need was really around just having a guide and knowing where to position the guide. Another example here, repeating elements. So we know that designers, they need to repeat elements all the time. So let's say I'm here, I have this card, and I want to create more, I need to create more cards here horizontally. Of course I can copy and paste the traditional way of doing this. I can copy, paste, move. I can use like maybe press the option key here to create another card. But then if I make a change to one card, I have to replicate that change for every single card. The way you design, and then if I need to change the padding, for example, it's really complicated because I have to remember how many times I hit shift. It's really painful. So thinking of that, we created this functionality called repeat grid. So you just select that card, the element or elements you want to repeat, click on repeat grid, and you visually repeat the cards. Then if you need to adjust the padding, you can go to the middle, and any change you make to one card is reflected throughout the whole grid. So this is really, really powerful. You can even drag images, a set of images to the grid. Every image goes to a separate card. So again, we're trying to, based on the need, based on what we identified of people repeating elements, people having to repeat the steps, and it's painful. There's a lot of friction there. We came up with a solution, in this case the repeat grid, and you can even have unique content there. So one of our favorite features there since day one, repeat grid. All right, the next one, more recent, around states. So in the past, actually a year ago, we released this feature called Auto Animate, where you could create animations within artboards. Let's say I have a button, I tap on that button, then it animates to some other form, it morphs to something that's different. Maybe it changes color, maybe it grows and all that. So with two artboards, I was able to create this kind of animation. Super powerful. But let's say I wanted to create the Spotify UI here, like this, with different buttons and everything. To achieve that with just auto animate, which is really powerful but not enough, I would have to have multiple artboards. For every little element, I would have to have 2 or maybe 3 artboards, and that's really, really painful. So based on that pain, we created this functionality called component states. So for every time that you create a component, you can create a state. So for example, here's the same project with just one artboard. So you can see each component has multiple states. For example, the tab here has multiple states within the same component. And then with just one artboard, I can have pretty much all the interactions, including hover, that in User Voice had, I think, close to 9,000 votes, which is pretty crazy. And again, trying to deliver value via understanding, deeply understanding the problem. Let's say as a PM, you divide your day in a spectrum. So let's say your day has different activities and all that. So as a PM, you're probably doing discovery or delivery, right? Discovery, you're doing UX research, you're talking to your users, and delivery is really like being on Jira and spending a lot of time executing, make sure the execution is there. So I have a question here. Are you spending more time on discovery or are you spending more time on delivery? Every time I speak with product people, a lot of them spend a lot more time in delivery. So in order to deliver value, my recommendation, and a recommendation by a lot of other authors, is really to stay more in discovery than on delivery. Really engaging with users and validating. That's where the value is. And there's always like this forces pulling you to delivery mode, where there's like business needs. And one of the biggest things is how you balance the business need with the user need. And that's an art, and it's not easy. But again, if you can stay more in discovery mode, I think you generate a lot more value for your company, for your users, and in the long term, that will pay off big time. How can I stay more in discovery mode? So the first thing that I recommend is, as soon as you understand, it's like you identify, oh my God, things are chaotic, there's a lot of noise, I'm spending too much time on Jira, I'm spending too much time just speaking with my executives, it's crazy. So my recommendation is stop and breathe. Try to get to that inner voice that's there. You know it's there, right? Like that guided you to where you are today. Self-talk is really, really powerful. So make sure you can get back to that state where you can pause and breathe and understand what's happening. Find that inner voice as a first step. So how many times, question for you, how many times you go to bed at night and then you just spend hours, 1 hour, just scrolling your social media? For me, that's wasting time. So good PMs, they know how to manage and conquer time. So spending all that energy is really bad. So identify your distractions. Another distraction, for example, is competition. On the XD team, we respect our competitors. We know they're there, but we are focused on our thing. We're focused on our pace. We're really investigating ways of connecting more with users, validate more with users, forcing ourselves not to be distracted by what's happening in the competition. Another one here, allow yourself to be bored. Like, I think if we want to stay in discovery mode more on that column, it's really important to give your brain the ability to reflect, to process. As soon as you touch your phone, as soon as you go to email, you're already in reactive mode. You're already in delivery mode, and then you're getting distant. You're getting more distant from generating value. So that's really, really important. Another thing is find ways to be more confident, right? As I said before, self-talk is really, really important. So choose to be positive. That is an option. You can make that choice. And always try to feed your brain with positive input. So don't look at, or at least try to avoid watching like bad stuff, like news and all that, because that's a lot of like people dying. It's not good. So try to be surrounded by positive things. And another thing that's important that I learned from good leaders is that sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. So I think good PMs, they have this ability to react, keep calm, stay calm, and then and ask for answers, like ask for more time to look for the answer, instead of just being reactive and panic and being negative. So again, being confident is, for me, is really a choice, and you can practice, and the more you practice, the more you find ways of feeling more confident, it will translate to your team, it will translate to whoever you're working with. All right, so now let's talk about the things that you're not. So as a PM, it's to stay more focused in discovery where the value is. It's really important to focus on a couple of things. So the first one is you're not a magician, right? So stop with this thing of the big review, like, oh, I work in silos and I spend a lot of energy, a lot of time on this thing, and then secretly, like, and then I show it to my team, to my manager. Stop doing that. So in order to stay more in discovery, in order to iterate more, in order to align more, make sure you involve people as soon as possible, and it's a collaborative process instead of you. It's just too risky to do something isolated like that. You're not a designer. Again, it's very easy to fall into this trap of, I want to design a nice wireframe, I want to design, and as soon as, for me, for example, as soon as I understand and I identify that I'm spending too much time on, let's say, designing, I stop and I say, no, this is I'm not a designer, so let's focus on understanding the problem, on delegating and making sure you can collaborate with designers for them to really push the pixels and give their feedback on how they see it. So it's really important to stay on track and stay close to discovery mode. Another thing, you're not a developer. I have a big developer advocate background, and it's very easy for me to try to build things. And again, another thing, focus on being in discovery, and don't try to be the developer. Don't waste time here. You have developers on your team. You're not a project manager either, so it's really important to count. For example, at Adobe, we have program managers. At different companies, they have different roles, but it's really important to focus on again, generating value, making sure everything is there in terms of understanding. But for tracking the project or making sure it really gets delivered, partner with project managers, with program managers, but don't be that, because that takes a lot of time, and you take valuable time from being a PM to be a project manager. You're not the CEO. Again, as I said before, balancing business needs and user needs is an art, and I would say long term, what really matters, if you can stay more on the user needs without forgetting what the business is focused and everything, if you can balance that, the better. So if you don't, the recommendation here is don't spend too much time on the business side, because you lose track of your customer, and then you're gonna lose track of value. I know so many, like I worked with amazing people that left the company because of this mentality from other managers and all that. They just wanted like to please executives and all that. So that created friction and problems. Make sure you stay more as a PM. Don't try to be the executive, the CEO of this thing. It's really, really important. Huge thing, you're not an amplifier of problems, right? So I've done mistakes in the past where I remember like something going bad, and I was like panicking and, oh my God, this is bad. And as I grew as a product manager, I learned that my job is really to manage chaos. And when something bad happens, make sure you really can stop, you can breathe, you can assess the problem, maybe come up with one or two or maybe three potential solutions to get out of that problem, and only involve people that can help, right? Don't just throw things out there to create noise and create panic. So this is really, really important. Great product managers, they spend a lot of time and energy managing chaos, trying to mitigate that in a way that it helps solving that instead of creating panic. So this is really important. Don't be this kind of person. And huge thing, like you're not alone. Make sure you can delegate, make sure you can work with other teams, designers, developers, program managers, marketing, everyone involved in all the touch points of the relationship your product has with the customer and customers. All right, so now let's move to the positive side. Now we saw everything that you are not. Let's see recommendations of things that you can be. So it's really important as a good PM focused on value to fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. It sounds very obvious, but when you look at this, it's really important to focus on understanding the problem and really caring about the problem, speaking your different perspectives, not using your perspective, your bias, your assumptions. Make sure you speak with users and you understand the problem deeply before you start thinking of solutions. So really fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. When you present a solution, also like make sure you bring the problem first. So show the pain, make sure people that are watching that they can relate to the pain, so they understand the solution, they see the value, they have that gain on their pain. Super important, like focus on paying attention and not getting attention. A lot of people that really focus on corporate growth and they just want to focus on their careers and all that, on getting attention, long term they fail. Like I've seen this happen like multiple times in multiple companies. So the way I see it is like I'll do the best job I can where I am right now, trying to understand the problem, trying to perfect my craft instead of like competing and all that. So make sure you can focus on being the best at doing your thing without like trying to please others, please executives, because long term that doesn't work. One thing that we do a lot on the XD team, we design with customers, not for customers. So we don't stay in a silo building something for a customer and then deliver and hope that will work. We really bring designers, because XD is really focused on designers now. We really work with designers along the way. So we go to customers. My team specifically spends a lot of time with customers at big enterprises, trying to understand their problems, understand their pain points, and also like validating a lot of the things that they're being designed as a very early prototype by the design team, or maybe it's super early, the research team, maybe the product team needs to get more insights to fine-tune the requirements and all that. So it's really important to bring customers along the way. This is more personal, be in the now. So one example here, I love surfing, and I remember when I was competing this year, I'm not a professional by any means, but it was an amateur contest, and I had to win that hit to win the season. Nationals, it was a big deal, like for amateurs, and I remember it was not going well. It was really bad, and then I remembered this, and I focused my energy on being there in the now. So I was touching the water, I was trying to focus, and then I was able to react to the situation and do well. And I ended up doing super well, and that was super positive. And one thing that I do personally, I spend a lot of energy like listening to high performance like podcasts on like athletes and Olympics and all that. And a lot of these athletes, they spend a lot of energy reacting to what's coming to them. So they know how to react to chaos instead of thinking about, oh, I'm gonna win that trophy and I want to picture myself winning. They don't do that. They really focus on being in the now, reacting to what's coming. They're trained, so they train on in a lot of different situations to get to the best results based on what's coming. So just as a good PM, as you practice, you get better at reacting to all the inputs that you're getting, positive and mostly negative, which is good, so you can manage chaos and find opportunities to improve. Focus on the things that you can control, which is really important, instead of panicking and creating stress on the things that you cannot control. I'm almost done here, so the next one is listen with love. This is something I heard a while ago and really affected me in a good way, because everyone has a perspective. Everyone has a unique perspective on things. Maybe even if you don't agree with that, it's really important to respect that. So make sure you listen to your customer, to your peers, but you're listening with love. You're really respecting that different point of view if that's the case. So that's super important. And prioritize, right? So I think PMs are masters of prioritizing and conquering time. So it's really important to be proactive and not reactive and prioritize. So for me, my family is my number one priority. They will always be my number one priority. And make sure you train and you practice on prioritizing stuff. So as I said, I have an incredible family, and they'll always be at the top of my priorities. So I hope you like this. I hope this is informative, and stay in touch. Stay in touch on Twitter, social media in general, and let me know what you think. Is this helpful? Is there any opportunities to generate more value? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.